Hello, 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 and welcome to Property Gamechangers Live. We're here live on the Property Gamechangers Facebook page. And grab your, I nearly knocked mine over, grab your coffee and join us as we chat with people who are changing the game in property. Each week, we're celebrating the power of ethical property investing, a bit of a tongue twister, to really change lives. And we're debunking the myth that you need a lot of money to get started in property. And as always, we're inspiring each other to believe bigger, to be bolder, and to be game changers for good. And our guest this week is utterly fabulous. And I know you're going to love her story so much. So we have with us today Toyin Davidson-Ero, who's the founder and CEO of the Property Pillars Network. She's been in property for well over 20 years, and she's raised over £4 million in private finance. And she's served her private investors, delivering great returns consistently. And Toyin also advises corporate clients on property acquisition and property investing. She's a hugely inspirational speaker and coach. And she has the hugely popular Property Pillars Network, which is where I first found Toyin many years ago and have been following from afar. So it is a huge pleasure for me to welcome today Property Game Changer, Toyin Davidson-Ero, to Property Game Changers. Hi, Toyin.
Thank you. With that kind of introduction, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. I feel so honored, so privileged, and so blessed to be part of what you're doing, Stephanie. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
It's my pleasure. As we were just saying earlier, it's one of the major perks of doing this is I get to speak to all these amazing people who I just sort of watched from a distance for so long. But let's talk about you. And what I've been finding is that for many people, there's a moment where they just decide that something has to change. And oftentimes that's the moment where they decide to get started in property. Was it like that for you? What happened?
Well, mine was slightly different because I was always in the property profession as a lawyer.
Yeah.
Well over 20 years. I was admitted as a chartered legal executive in October 1999. And my specialist area in law was landlord and tenant litigation. So because of my practice in law, I was always representing banks, landlords, and investors from a perspective of a lawyer, legal perspective. So I had litigation coming out my ears where they had disputes over tenants, where they had ground rent and service charge disputes, where they had commercial disputes, where they had to draft option agreements, and there was disputes that came from those. So from the legal perspective, as a lawyer, I was always representing landlords and investors. And I also had a private personal interest in being a landlady myself, which sort of started when I was very young. I just liked the idea of owning real estate and renting them out. So in addition to practicing law, I had a small portfolio of buy-to-let. And that's really how it started for me.
That's fantastic. You really got to know it from the dark side, if you will. And you still got your legal practice.
I still do, but I employ solicitors
and
staff. So when the work comes through, yes, we're still running.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic because it's great to have a practice where people really understand property investing, and that's not always the case. So you really started early on. Can you tell me in your 20s, was it that you got started?
Yes.
Tell us about, actually just getting started in property at first.
Well, I mean, from being, I grew up in London, I lived in a council house, although I was at a boarding school, came from Sussex at the age of 16, moved to London. And so we had this council property. So the first experience of home ownership was the first purchase of my own right to buy a flat in London.
Yeah.
When I was about 21. So I purchased that flat, bought it for £21,000, sold it for 180 something thousand. and then worked up onto the ladder and bought a couple more and a couple more. So that's really how it started for me, as a young 21-year-old girl.
Wow. Well, you mentioned a few things I'm actually really interested in there. So you said two things that didn't seem to go together. So you grew up in a council house, but maybe I've got it wrong here. And you went to a boarding school.
Yeah, from the age of 7 to the age of about 15, 16, I was
Yeah.
in a boarding school in Sussex. And
Yeah.
I came to London I went to a day independent school in Beckenham, a place called Beckenham in Bromley in Kent.
Yeah.
And that's where I finished and did my GCSE. And in that period,
Yeah.
we we stayed in London. We were in London.
Yeah.
Studied
And
London.
so, and then you moved out into a council house, or was that your family home?
I bought the council house,
Yeah.
and then I moved from the council house got married at that
Yeah.
stage,
Yeah.
came to Milton Keynes, where I now live with my children.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very interesting. But one of the many takeaways is that you got started at a young age. You had the opportunity to buy your council house. You did so. And at the time you bought it for this, what sounds now like a crazy price of £21,000. And did you say at the time you bought it, it was worth 180,000?
No, I kept it for up to 4 or 5 years before
Yeah.
I sold it. So it was bought it when I think possibly at the time nobody was buying council housing then in that
Yeah.
particular block. I think I was the first to do it. It
Yeah.
wasn't something that was attractive to people. They didn't like the idea of it. They
Yeah.
thought it wouldn't hold its value. In fact, the surveyor that came down to value up for the bank said it was a white elephant. It would go nowhere to me. That's what he told me at the time. He nearly put me off. But I just thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. The chap at the other side said, well, you're paying all the rent and you've got the rights. Why don't you proceed? I just thought, I've got nothing to lose. It's not a great deal of money. I just went ahead and did it.
Yeah. Wow. I love that story as well, because it's another lesson to us, isn't it? Follow your mind when you've got instinct, because there's always people telling you it won't work. And then you bought it at 21,000. And then just a few years later, what you were saying there, 3, 4, 5 years later, you sold it for 180,000.
Yeah.
So phenomenal. And then meantime, and as a result of, I'm sure, getting all that cash in, you then built up your portfolio. And meantime, you've moved to Milton Keynes.
Yes, correct.
And then did you build up your portfolio in Milton Keynes?
No, it was in Milton Keynes, Peterborough, and some parts of London.
Right. Okay. Well, it seems like, or is this the case that you just started off buying here and there, and then did you ever get some property education or mentoring or anything like that?
I have to confess, a lot of what I've learned, to be honest and truth, has been self-taught.
Yes.
And don't forget, I was very fortunate because I had educators around me that I could pick up the phone and ask questions. Because I was their solicitor, I was their lawyer. So if I got stuck with something, a lot of my landlords were serious big time investors, my client. So I'll pick up the phone and give them a call. This is where I'm at. How do I deal with it? I was very fortunate that I had the network already. So I didn't do formal property education, I have to confess.
Well, that is another gem right there, isn't it? It's so common, the phrase within property, your network is your net worth. And which brings us on really, Toyin, a great time to speak about what many people know you for is your Property Pillars network. So talk us about that. Talk to us about that.
Oh, well, that was something that really it was more a passion than it was a profit venture. After practicing law for 20 years, since 1999 in Milton Keynes and in London, I got a bit tired of it. I really was feeling a bit, time to do something different. So what I did, I got my Samsung phone, this phone that I'm using now, and I made up my mind that I was going to make some YouTube videos just by way of changing direction. And the idea at the time was never to start a club, absolutely. My plan was I'll do some YouTube videos, I'll segment them out and give information and knowledge that will help people about the things that I learned as a lawyer that they used to come and see me over. I started making videos, simple things like the difference between a leasehold and a freehold, what people should be aware of. I found that I got 3,500 or 2,000 views on that video. And then I did the video about ground rent and service charges, what people should be aware of. I found out people liked that. I
Mm.
talked about when there was a Grenville fire, I talked about fire safety and the
Mm.
obligation on the landlords. I talked about that. I talked about things like tenancy application processes. I talked about Section 21, all the things that as a lawyer that was coming to me by way of my clients. So
Mm.
I started making these videos and people were watching and they say, wow,
Mm.
this is very helpful content. I thought, well, if that helps you, what if I brought other people to it for me to interview who are also experts? And I started calling a lot of my guests. A lot of the guests that you see that I interviewed were people that I already knew because they were my clients.
Yes.
So I called Glenn, I called Paul, I called all the people that I already knew. And I said, yeah, well, why not? We already know you will come on. And 146 videos later on the Property Pillars platform, a lot of people started to say, this is valuable content. And they'll private message and say, can we meet you? Because some of the things you said, we want you to help us with it. Because we've now got to that stage where we're taking action. And then I was sort of getting inquiries from people. So I said, all right, to save me running up and down for everybody, let's meet at the Pullman Hotel in Houston on the last Friday of the month. And we just sit down and we try to support each other. You bring your knowledge, you bring your knowledge, you bring your knowledge, and we try to work it together. So the first Friday that I decided to send that message out, 6 people turned up in the lounge area of the Pullman Hotel. We sat down, we talked, we laughed, we really enjoyed each other's company. Then somebody had the suggestion that we should do it again the following last Friday of the next month. So we came back, at this time 14 of them turned up. Same hotel in the lounge area. Somebody said, why don't we do it again next month? And when we did the next month, it was like, okay, let's form a club.
Yeah.
And they said, Toyin, you started this, we followed you, you're the originator, it's your baby. So I thought, right, let's do it. And the Pullman Hotel weren't having us because by this time, 20, 30 of us were gathering in the lobby area once a month. And they were like, you guys can't keep turning up like this, You're becoming too much of a crowd, you've got to have a meeting room, you've got to pay. So for a period, we became nomadic. We're going from hotels in Knightsbridge to Kensington and then Cromwell Hotel today. And we didn't have somewhere permanent. And it was like, where are we meeting this month, by the way? I'm like, actually, I don't quite yet know. So I said, listen, we've got to organize this properly. Let's start a way of getting money together. If we're going to take a hotel room, we need to pay for it. We're going to need to have a projector. We need to have a website. We need to have a brand. Now that we've already started. So that's how I said, right, okay, let's make it into a club. So people agreed. I said it's going to be a members only club. We'll come together, we'll support each other, we'll do training, we'll do investing, and we'll do networking. And we'll return back to Pullman Hotel where we originally met. We spoke to the events manager who gave us a deal on the rooms, the double rooms downstairs. And then we started doing it there. And then October of last year, we did a magnificent, well, I thought it was a really great first birthday party, in the lounge area. We had cocktails, canopies, drinks, cake. And all of us came together. Possibly about 100 of us turned up for the party to celebrate what we had really achieved in 1 year. So we're going to be 2 years old as a club in October of this year. So I'm looking forward to what the future holds. But we are growing. Membership is every month. We get people signing up. We've got a great WhatsApp group where people have conversations with each other. We've got within the club very diverse types of people. We've got the first-time buyers who are just there to listen in. We've got the very sophisticated high-end investors who've got their own funds who are there. And we've also got the middle band, the professionals who've got professional jobs and we've got a small buy-to-let portfolio. And we're all muddling together to support each other. So at the club, we have a training section of the meeting. We have an investment opportunity presented to us as a club that we decide to pull resources together to do. And then we also get the chance to network. So at the moment, we have about 6 investment projects that we're working together on, because within the club, we have high net worth developers and also high net worth professional people who want to invest their money, but who don't have the knowledge or the time. So they come with their money to invest with one of our developers who are also likewise members of the club. So we've got about 6 or 7 projects at the moment. We've got one in Potter's Bar, a commercial resi that we're converting the building commercial into 2 flats above. We've got one in Eltham, again commercial, that we're converting the upstairs into 2 flats. We've got a block of flats in in Peterborough that we're doing at the moment. Got planning on that. Huntingdon planning came through for 16 luxury apartments, and it's earmarked for an award. So that was going to be in
Mm.
the papers. We've got Crystal Palace has just been funded, a luxury £2,500 build, a one unit, a £1.5 million house. That has now been fully funded, and Stella's running with that. We've got a project in Nottingham, house, and then there's Clacton on Sea. There's so many. It's all on the website. If you visit the Property Pillars Club website, you will see all the projects that we now operate and we run. We built a cemetery. Well, when I said we built a cemetery, we partook of a development for a cemetery last year. That was one of our first club projects, and it was Bluebell Cemetery in Sevenoaks, and we invested with the developers at the infancy of the development, and we made a profit, obviously, when the development was finished. So we've got all of the testimonials of that particular project on the video, a couple of YouTube videos about that. So that's really what the club does. Yeah.
I love the explanation. I'm glad you went into it deep, because obviously it's not just what people think of as a networking club, because you're actually curating these opportunities both for your high net worth members to invest, and for your developers and your people with the time and the knowledge to actually put those funds to work, and that you can all collaborate to take on bigger deals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I love that. And we've had a few comments. Ornez is saying that you're the best, and Esse is saying awesome, and great beginnings. And for those of you listening, you can find out more from Toyin and the Property Pillars Club at Property Pillars, PILLARS club.com. Okay, so that's phenomenal. So let's go on then. You've got your portfolio and you're building up from there. I know that there's two things. Well, there's more than two things. There's lots of things I want to cover, but let's talk about moving from just, normal buy-to-let, as if you like, to actually taking on these bigger developments that you're talking about.
Well, I've never come from a development background, and I've always been a very vanilla, low risk type person, where I'm just happy to just get a property, rent it out, and that's fine. But when I started to do more of the property pillars, I realized that there was other opportunities that I hadn't had the knowledge of, and I should consider alongside the savvy vanilla buy-to-let. And I started to take a lot more interest in the development side. Although I didn't want to develop myself, I liked the idea of being able to partner with the developer who knew what he was doing, and see a building go up and sell it and make a profit. I loved the idea. So when we started the Property Pillars platform, I saw that within the membership, there were already very successful, medium-sized, quietly rich, young developers who were doing exactly that. So I wanted to work with them on a partnership basis, because they already sourced the deals, they already have the planning sorted, they already had the funding to proceed. And I wanted to say to them, look, if I had money, X amount, if I was to partner with you, would I be able to get a profitable return if I came along with you? Because for me, I didn't need to do anything. I didn't want to do anything. I'm not a developer, So for me, it was the best way, as a win-win situation for them, because it meant that they were able to get maybe equity finance that they would not otherwise see. And it was win-win for me, because I inadvertently was a bystander, but I was also doing a project that they controlled. So, and I was happy. So the only thing that I really wanted to secure is my personal interest, to make sure that monies were secure, and that I had the right structure in place, and that they weren't going away, or they weren't going to go anywhere. So being a lawyer, I obviously knew how to put that structure together, the SPV, the shareholders agreement, the loan notes, the RX1s. And I also consulted other solicitors to rub minds on how we could do it. And we did it, and it worked, and we were on to the first successful project. And then soon people were saying, I want to do, Toy, what you've just done with so-and-so. Can I come on board? And then we started to launch more products. By then, people had different appetites for different amounts and different areas. Some people wanted Peterborough, some people wanted Milton Keynes, some people wanted London, Some people wanted entry levels of £5,000 that Nigel Pointer does in the club. And then there's some people who wanted £50,000 entry level, which is what Stella Osai does in her project. And then some people wanted 20,000 entry level. So you can see that within the club, there's different people had different investment needs. So we had to bring partners. But although you see my face, I'm not the only one running that club.
Yeah.
It's not a one-man show. I mean, behind me, I can give you some key names. There's Mr. Sam Onibanjo, who does our digital marketing for us. And there's a lovely girl called Amache. She does the support for us with the digital marketing, content writing. Nigel Pointer, he does the investments of £5,000 and below. He works with us. We've got Maya Tossing. He's a developer in Boston. He's one of our in Peterborough. He's got Lancashire development coming up. He's doing a couple of new builds houses. We got Peter Marakinya, Land Density. He's one of our partners. He's doing a couple of developments for us. Like I said, we've got Stella Osai and Ola Popola. He's with us. And then behind them, we've got the great community of young, interested investors who want to invest, who are interested in learning. And we've also got the very high end. We've also got people within the club who've got a lot of funds who are looking to put funds away and comfortably. Maybe they own their own bridge facility, or they've got access to a lot of funding that they want to be able to generate more from. So they're there. But there's a wide range of needs that one has to sort of be careful to make sure that you meet. It's a huge thing I'm carrying, but with God's help.
Yeah. Well, let's move on then, because the next thing I was really interested in is one of the things that I know about you is that you've raised over £4 million in private finance. Now, as you know from your many years in property, there always comes a point for any investor developer where you're looking for external funds, and it's something that people seem to really struggle with. What really are your top tips before you became the Toyin that everybody knows and loves for people who are looking for private finance?
Well, a lot of it comes from relationships that you build with people. The starting point of any business is to build a trusting relationship. And your person really matters. Your transparency, your sophistication of knowledge, and being able to produce the answers that concern people with evidence. I think ultimately, if you're able to come and challenge yourself to meet those expectations, people will throw money at you and they will trust you. So I think I was very comfortable with being able to articulate opportunities. I was able to explain them from a legal standpoint. I was able to explain them from an investor standpoint, and I was able to demonstrate them and show people the sites. So the people who were coming, they had the requisite knowledge of the sourcing, the project, the securities, the risk, and they were very comfortable in their own seats. And they were able to take legal documents away because we use solicitors independent of us to prepare the paperwork. We don't do any in-house legal work for any investor at all. And they can take the paperwork away and they can have it checked out. They can come to the site, we'll do a tour visit, we'll meet the planners, we'll meet the architects. We have a complete transparency policy with the bank accounts. When the investors' monies are held in an SPV, we open a very transparent bank account where all the investors' money is going together. Drawings are coming out. We get a confirmation of what drawings are being used and what they're being used against. And we regularly meet, even when we were doing the club meetings, when we came together every month, the developer, the architect, the planner, the investors all come together. When we do our networking, we all chat about where we're at with our projects. So because there was continuation, and then they were getting regular newsletters, and we had a WhatsApp group for each project. We still do. My phone is always buzzing because I've got like 16 WhatsApp group on there. And I'm in every single group. We'll have a WhatsApp group for the investors involved in Elton project. Maybe there's 10 of them there. It's a private group. The project manager reports daily, weekly on what's happening there. We've got a WhatsApp group for the Potters Bar group who are doing the Potters Bar project. We've got one for Nottingham. And every day they can see between the investors, the developers, the funders, there's the communication going on.
And that has made me think, because one of the things you mentioned is relationships, but the one definite that we always know is going to happen in property is things go wrong. Unexpected things happen. So tell us about how that works, because sometimes, as you were just saying, you might have 10, investors in one deal and something might happen. So tell us a little bit about that.
Touch wood, and with God's help, we've never had anything go wrong.
Mm.
We've never had anything go wrong. But if there was ever anything that would go wrong, well, Corona went wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
When I say anything wrong, anything within our control go wrong.
Yeah.
But Corona was one that did affect us, because a lot of the project that we had promised them that people get returned within 12 months, we weren't able to fulfill because we weren't able to do the build. So, so we had to just, we lived with that. So those are two, but apart from that, there hasn't been any major, because we've got buildings that have been given planning. We've sourced the building, we've got the planning. The developer himself has put possibly 70% of his own funds into it. So he's in first loss. He's putting his own house down, he's putting 180 of his own money into it. The remaining 10, 30 or 15% has come from the investors. So that's exactly how it is.
Oh, so is it on a fixed return basis rather than an equity basis?
It's on a fixed return basis, yes.
Yeah, which is actually really good in for investors who want to, get a much higher return than they can elsewhere without such a high level of risk. And it's good for the developers who are looking to hold on to the equity. But SA has asked the question, Toyin, can people get a chance through your club to partner with a developer?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought as well. So what I love about you, Toyin, is not that you've scaled up your property development far beyond what most people do, which is just the odd one or two properties, and you've moved up into development, and you've done it in a partnership way, rather than to work with other people's expertise and they work with yours. But the other thing that really impressed me and shocked me, I have to tell you, is fairly recently you posted up a picture of yourself, a few years ago, I think it was, where you weighed did you say 4 stone heavier? I could not believe it was the same person.
I was 16 stones.
Really? Wow. And a lot of property is about mindset, but definitely I know many of us will be able to relate to that struggle. So tell us about that and how you've gone to this model-sized woman we see before us now.
It's possibly not it's really not an endorsement for any slimming companies. Actually, it's a combination of tragedy bad luck, and not being so healthy. I started off, I've always been a slim person, but this is why I've always been as a sort of 21-year-old me. And then obviously during the childbearing years, I put on a lot of weight having the children, and I sort of gave in on myself. So I weighed like 16 stones. I don't know how many kilograms of that. It's probably about 80 something kilos, I think. But today I'm weighing 9 stones and I'm 58 kilograms now today. And so I lost quite a lot of weight, but it was gradually over a series of years. I had really bad eating habits, and coming from sort of the West African culture, my mother was always eat everything on your plate. You must finish it, eat well, and everything was almost full. So I grew up in an environment where I was fed well, very well. So I grew up feeling that I ought to eat. But when I started to develop health issues, blood pressure issues, I was on blood pressure tablets, then the doctor hammered in on me that, look, you're obese. According to the scale, there's a graph that the doctor showed me. This is your height and this is what you are, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm going to die. Yeah. And I joined Weight Watchers. For me, everything I did, slimming teas, it didn't work until I just decided to gradually begin to do some very simple things like not eat late, not eat after 6 p.m. And eventually, over years, not just a month, it was over years and years and years, I began to lose weight. And I started the lifestyle of eating better as well. So yeah, fingers crossed, I've managed to maintain it.
Yeah. How many years has that been now since you made that big health shift?
I started possibly 4 or 5 years ago. was when I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
to eat
No,
better.
you're already exceeding. I don't know what the percentage is, but I know that most people put their weight back within a really short period of time, and there's not many keep it off for 5 years like you have. So, kudos to you. And my story is similar as well. So I can totally relate. But won't go into my my tales of woe now. Let's keep it to you because so we talked about, you went up from your normal portfolio, you went on to development, you've got this incredible network of real mixture of people, both developer side and, getting started in property investment side. What would you say would be your advice to people who are just getting started and they feel quite unsure?
Get into a community of people who are sure, because
Mm,
you will begin to talk to them, meet
mm,
them, and be inspired by them.
mhm.
And the moment you're connecting with people who are sure, you're likely to become sure.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's such great advice. It's so obvious. And so sometimes we don't do that, do we? And what do you think for you has been the hardest thing about, your property journey?
Um, Access to finance.
Mm, mm, mm,
Yeah. Because that is where most people struggle.
mhm,
Access to finance is a real challenge, and
mhm,
being creative with what's in front of you.
mm,
So once we overcome that hurdle,
mhm,
um, then there is practically nothing you cannot do. And being creative without
mm,
fun. So
mm,
nowadays, we within the club, we try to teach people how to create opportunities without funds. So when they come to the club, we get speakers on there who will be able to explain to them how, using an option, they can secure a property, and creative strategies that can help them.
Yeah, no, that is really powerful advice. When I remember when I first started, I did not believe any of this business about options or that, but it has turned out to be true. We've got several properties that's how we acquired them. So I think it is important to be around people not only who are sure, but you see that they've already achieved the results, that you're looking to achieve, like you have. So you've overcome that article. Are there any books or podcasts or things like that you tune into for inspiration or information?
I have to be honest. I'm not really, and I'm more audio. So if I have
Yeah.
something I'm listening to in the car,
Yeah.
and then yes, I can. But there's nobody that really inspires me because I'm so much into my faith,
Yeah.
and my Christian walk. A lot of the things I listen to during the day is messages from scriptures and
Mm,
messages of inspiration from people who have overcome challenges. I don't
mm,
focus on listening to property gurus. I have to confess, I haven't
mm,
got a person in that side that I listen to. I've got a lot of friends that I know that do really well doing these things.
mm.
But my day is, in terms of what I listen to scriptures that soothe me, that keep me at peace, because I believe that I'm just made for higher things than this world. But my focus is there.
Yeah, and have you always had that faith, or is that something that you've come to in adulthood? Did you grow up
Yeah,
with
I think over the years, as I've overcome so many challenges, like divorce, having to raise 3 kids of my own, not
Mm,
having low self-esteem, being quite depressed,
mm,
and not having very much to myself, I've used the same thing to overcome those challenges, and I've found that it's worked tremendously for me and
mm.
taken me to where I am today. So it's built me. So for me, that's how my faith has become the way it is today.
Yeah, no, I'm sure people would be surprised to think, oh, that you could have had low self-esteem or these other things, but kudos to you on the way that you've totally transformed, not only outside, but also inside. And essay saying, amen, sister, kudos. Um, so let's move on now to the personal impact. One of the things we talk about with property game changers is how property really can change the way that your life goes. So tell us a little bit about how your life in property has changed the game for you and for your family.
Well, it's a good strategy in terms of passive income.
Mm,
And for a lot of what we do, once we've created the project and the projects, I mean, the joy of it is that once you've done it, you've done it. You can earn from it continually.
mm,
This is one of the reasons why we do what we do, because I don't want to be going out slugging all day, working long hours. Where I'm
mhm,
at now, I want to be able to have more quality time with my family and less
mm,
work. So ultimately, my strategy is within the next 10 years to be out of this game altogether, but
yeah.
have enough settled so that there's passive income coming.
Mm,
So it does mean that, yes, if one doesn't work, as in legal work is dried up or one
mm,
doesn't have access to any work, you get money from property that you've established, that you've built, that now gives you revenue. So one
mm.
benefit is definitely the passive income you can attribute to property.
And speaking about your family now, again, we have seen the TikTok videos, Toyin. We have seen the TikTok. Oh, yeah, and I was amazed that you had that size of children. But Ones is saying beautiful testimony about your story, and he's also asking what are the best postcodes in Milton Keynes for service accommodation investment.
MK1.
Okay, that's a simple answer there for you, Ones. Is that something that you do yourself?
I don't do essays personally, but we have amongst my community and in my club members that do service accommodation.
Yeah, it's a tough time at the moment. Well, challenging for well for everyone in a slightly different way. Opportunity and challenges, they're always sort of
Yeah.
part of the same thing. It's just what you can see. And we also talk about how you're changing the game wider than ourselves, and that's one of the joys and privileges that we get as we create wealth that's beyond ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a great supporter. There's a few charities that personally I support. There's one called the Light Force charity.
Mhm,
I support. It's really associated with the orphanage in Uganda.
mm,
It's actually a Christian organization, and
mhm,
they my daughter's actually been as an ambassador to the
uh,
organization. So she went to Uganda
mhm,
for I think for about 10 days, and she taught to
mhm,
the children in the community English and Bible. So that particular
mhm,
orphanage in is called Light Force, the organization. They've got others in India, but
mhm,
my passion is to sort of those 200, 300 children. They have dormitories, it's got its own site. I fund that. Well, I contribute to that every month.
mm, mm,
And I've got a few others that I try to look after in Nigeria as well, similar
mm,
orphanages, where
mm,
we spend money every month to support their feeding and their living and their education. So
mm.
that's one of the benefits of being able to sort of have access to some money to help others.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that I love the most is something that was totally unexpected. But yeah, it does bring so much joy knowing that you're helping others and having that relationship with people who have a very different life experience often to what we do, but knowing that you're enhancing. So as we come to the end, Toyin, is there anything that you feel that I haven't asked you yet that you would have loved to have shared with people today?
I just want to say thank you.
Ah, ah. Well, thank you. And I will just say, just encourage you if you're watching, you've really resonated with what Toyin is saying, to really follow up and go over to the property pillars. Let me see if I can put the URL, thepropertypillarsclub.com, where you can find out more and you can get involved because I'm guessing that you're online right now, Toyin, so people can visit from all over the country, even if you're not based near London. It's a great time for you to get involved with the property pillars and experience it right from home.
I wanted to say something. On
Yeah.
Friday, we have an event. So when you go to the Property Pillars website, click under the events page. We've got an event called 5 Minutes of Fame, because since Corona, we do everything on Zoom these days.
Yes.
5 Minutes of Fame. We want you to log on. It's going to be fabulous. It's a networking event where 5 members of our club will speak for 5 minutes about themselves and what they've achieved, and people who are watching can get to ask them any questions. So 5 minutes of fame is a free event, and it's going to be fabulous at Friday, the 17th of July. It starts at 6:30. Go to the events page of Property Pillars Club and click to register for free.
Brilliant. So whenever you're listening, go to the events page at Property Pillars, see what's coming up. If you're listening now, we're on the 15th of July, then you'll be able to go over and attend on Friday for the 5 minutes of fame. I really love the stories, you know, hearing other people's stories, because you see exactly what people do. And Ornez is saying that, thank you guys. My takeaway today is transparency. And I think you're all about that, Toyin, with what you do. I think it's a must when you're working with partners, which you usually are in properties. Your partners are your builders. Sometimes it might be your investors, but there's always people that you're working with to get the result, because you can't do everything yourself. Well, finally, Toyin, then I just want to thank you for coming on today, for being an inspiration. I'm so inspired by the way that you have created such change within your life that's allowed you to, you know, shine a light and show the way for others who want to aspire to having the same results as you. I'm thrilled that you could come and join us today and be so real and vulnerable about all the things you've been to getting up to this point. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for having me. I've really enjoyed being here with you.
Brilliant. And for you listening and watching, it's bye from Toyin.
Bye-bye, everybody.
And it's bye from me. I will see you again soon. Bye for now.